Hey. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of Hey Sister. Hey, sister, how you doing?
Hi, sister. I'm doing wonderful. Just over here trying to keep calm and evolve.
Hey, let's talk about it. I got my look right here. Keep calm and evolve. Yes, yes, yes. We'll talk about that in a little bit today. You're tuned in now live to Hey Sister. It is Sunday, March 12th, 2023. And if you're watching this or hearing this in a replay, welcome, whatever day and time that you are viewing this. I'm Demetria. I'm here with my sister Christina, and we are Hey Sister. We want you to come in, join the conversation in the comments tonight. That's what we want you to do. We also want you to like, follow, share, subscribe, tell folks that you are a fan, you're tuned in, you watch Hey Sister, and that you are a part of the Hey Sister tribe. So
Yes.
tonight we are going to spend a little time. It's what we are calling reflection time. We were having a conversation this morning a little bit as today is the 1 year anniversary of the slap heard around the world. Well, not the exact date, but we're gonna do a little reflection on the Oscars. We're also reflecting on a few other things. And so tonight we're gonna just talk about reflection time. Why is it important to have some reflection and all that good stuff? But hey, sister, how you doing?
Well, you already asked me that, but I'm
I'm
doing good.
asking you again.
I'm doing wonderful, sister. I cannot wait till we talk about our weekend
Hmm.
because even though I did not get in as deep and as much as I wanted to, I think it has been a very enlightening weekend.
Yes, it has been. Well, as you can see, so a little reflection, you can see I'm in my Mrs. Roper caftan. So for those of you who grew up, if you a 70s baby and grew up in the 80s, you know about Three's Company and Mrs. Roper. And she was known to rock a mean caftan, honey. And I got on my Mrs. Roper caftan tonight. Why? Because the daylight savings time foolishness, which I am ready for them to end and stop. I can't stand it. This spring ahead, disrupting my sleep and all the manners of. So, talking about reflection, why did we do this in the first place as a country? And why do we continue on with these shenanigans? Because majority of our country, they are not farmers anymore. Nobody needs that extra daylight to go out there. We are not on Yellowstone Ranch and have to go feed the cows. Like, I am done with the daylight saving time shenanigans. Leave it at standard time. That's where our bodies, the natural circadian rhythm is set. But y'all messing up my sleep. And that's why I have to be ready to go catch some Z's because this morning it was a little rough on the sister. So,
Well, it was
hey,
equally.
Jody.
Hey, JoJo, it was equally rough on this sister because my cell phone. I had set my cell phone because in. I mean, pretty much every day I have really good intentions. They just always they rarely come to fruition, but I have really good intentions. So I had my phone set for 5:30 this morning. Well, apparently, we don't change time here in the state of Arizona, but apparently the software updates get pushed out
Mm-hmm.
wherever you are. And if you must restart your phone in order for it to recognize where your location is.
Mm-hmm.
So the 5:30 alarm went off at 4:30.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was confused as hell because I was looking at the because I still got me an old school clock radio next to my bed. And I was like, I know we ain't supposed to change time. This is saying 4:30. So why is this alarm? And it scared me out of my sleep because I was sleeping with the weighted blanket. And the weighted blanket is just, I just love it. Okay. So
Delightful. It is a delightful thing.
delightful. So needless to say, once I fell back to sleep, it was almost 5, which I got up at 6 and tried to go back to 6:30. And then just by about 6:15, I was like, you know what, you failed at this sleep thing today. So
Jody said 5:30 for what on the Sunday?
because Miss Jody, because the time changed, I am now aligned to the Pacific time zone. And our Sunday school starts at 7:30 for me now. So I was trying to get up and exercise and get me a little water and a little snack and
be ready to praise the Lord, honey.
Yes, and I wanted to read my Sunday school lesson. None of those things happened, however.
But you was an active participant in the Sunday school. All right. So I'm going to say, if you live in a state or if you write your federal U.S. representative, U.S. senator, let's do away with this arbitrary movement of the clock. We are no longer farmers. The majority of the people are not farmers. There is a small percentage of the population that are farmers, but most of those farms are industrial, major corporations type things. Like, let's do away with this arbitrary thing and let's allow, because the standard time is standard. Even though time is a whole man-made construct, really we should be rising and falling with the sun. That is how our bodies and our circadian rhythm is set. We should be, as the sun rises, we should be rising, get some sunshine, and as it goes down, we should be going down. That is how our normal body rhythm is supposed to be, child. And let me tell you, get rid of this foolishness. Got to bed late and was going to sleep in, but the dog had other plans. Won't it will, honey? Child, listen. Okay.
Well, this is what I've never understood. So I know why, and I understand the agricultural part of it, but I never really understood why you can't just naturally, like you said, get up with the sun, go to sleep. Like why?
I mean, the days automatically get longer in the summertime as we rotate around the sun. Like that is what. In the spring and summer, the days automatically get longer. I mean, do y'all people did y'all not study this? Like, what is it that people don't understand? I don't get it.
Why can't people why couldn't the clocks, let me say, why couldn't the clock just stay as it was and you adjust your planting?
Girl, listen, go back and ask Richard Nixon, because that was done under his administration. Foolishness. How about that?
Well, we all know not much. Well, you know what? Let me not talk about these folks' former president.
The other thing we want to reflect on tonight is the Oscars. Who are you rooting for? We were looking at some of the red carpet. Well, they didn't do a red carpet this year, honey. They did a champagne color carpet. So we're looking at those people walking down the champagne. Oh, you didn't know that, sister? I saw that look on your face, honey.
Because
I ain't seen none of these movies nominated.
Listen, I told y'all about Malala's Stranger at the Gate. I saw that. Yeah. I saw Wakanda.
Well, yeah, Wakanda's nominated, not for Best Picture. In some other categories, it is definitely nominated. I have not seen The Fabelmans yet. I did watch Tar, which Cate Blanchett is nominated for Best Actress.
Because was Causeway in Brian Tyree Henry?
I think Byron Tyree Henry's nominated. I watched Causeway. Let's see, what movies are nominated? We saw Wakanda Forever because Angela Bassett is nominated as well. I believe this evening.
Top Gun, didn't see Women Talking, didn't see Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Saw that.
You saw the Banshees of Inisherin, right?
I saw the Banshees of Inisherin as well as Everything Everywhere All at Once. And honey, that one you need to watch because that one is a twist and you will get it if you watch it. And it is strange, it is weird, it is freaky, and you have to pay attention. And you need to probably watch it a second time to get some of the I see what these references are. But it is a clever movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's won everything. Triangle of Sadness, you saw that?
I have not seen Triangle of Sadness.
Okay, The Fabelmans, All Quiet on the Western Front.
I was gonna try to watch All Quiet on the Western Front, but I can't do a World War Nothing movie.
Avatar: The Way of Water.
I have not seen Avatar.
Elvis.
I have seen Elvis.
Okay, and then Tar. Okay, now best actor. Best actress. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, best international feature film. Okay. Um, best original song. We know "Lift Me Up" by I don't
Yes,
know.
Rihanna is performing tonight, and her baby will be performing on the Oscar stage as it did at the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
How about that?
that baby is punching some tickets to the red carpet event or
All
champagne.
right.
Best animated feature. Turning
Pinocchio should probably win again. I did see Turning Red.
Who did you say would win?
I think Pinocchio,
Yeah, I'm thinking Pinocchio as well. I didn't see it, but I'm thinking Pinocchio.
but I
Best
saw
film,
Pinocchio as well.
live action short film, best director.
Look, I guess I just missed all the movies. Maybe you did, sis. I got a few of them. They're on most of the streaming services. If you have any of the streaming services, you can catch many of them. And I will say that, but the truth is, last week we talked a lot about Chris Rock. And because we know that,
Brian
you know,
Tyler.
as we reflect back on the Oscars of 2022, year 2022, what a magnificent embrace of diversity, equity, and inclusion as all of these states and what have you move towards erasing diversity, equity, and inclusion. It was produced by Will Packer. We had 3 female comedic actresses as the hosts. It was this extravaganza and beautiful event up until that moment in which we all were like, what the hell just happened?
Y'all, we not inviting y'all back.
Yeah, so now we have Jimmy Kimmel back as the host. You know what I mean? So we went from 3 women back to a white dude. Like what? So as we reflect on the consequences of behavior,
Yes.
I think the Oscars is a reflection of all what we're seeing, especially for those of us who live in Florida, where you have a governor who's trying to say, and the legislature that supports, we're erasing everything, every reference to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I literally know people who work in institutions of higher learning who are having to go and pull those words out of curriculum, pull it off of descriptions of courses, pull it out of their old emails as they try to get funding from the state. That's where we are.
Right.
And so as we reflect back on the Oscars and the slap heard around the world and the consequences of those behaviors, I don't know, sister. I just think that, again, we need to stay woke. How about that? Since Florida's where woke went to die.
Yeah, woke went to die. I was like, well, I guess since it's still asleep, I guess might as well die. I don't know. I thought, like, I know he thought he was being really clever with that, but the fact is, I'm like, that really just sounds.
He ain't that clever. And I'm sure you saw the photo. For those of you who don't know who we're talking about, we're talking about the one governor of the state of Florida who is softly leading into his announcing his run for president, but went to Iowa and someone handed him a snowflake
Picture of a snowflake.
It was a cutout of a snowflake, and they probably handed to him and said some things about the snowflake because they always talk about snowflakes. And he was cheesing down, but it was fascist, 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 fascist. Like every arm of it was fascist.
And I'm trying to figure out who's going to get fired here. So, because sister who took the picture that I saw where he's cheesing so hard, it was him and another politician. I don't know the lady's name, but I'm assuming she's the one that handed it to the both of them because she's in both pictures. But I'm like, so who's getting fired? The person, because I know they have handlers. So is it the person who handed it to him, or was like, oh, this fan wants to take a picture with you? Or, I mean, what is it? Who gets fired? Because, wow, sir, you were just so excited to receive your snowflake. that you just didn't look closely. And it wasn't like it was really disguised.
And he's a snowflake. And that's the thing that gets me about people who talk about people who are snowflakes. Really? Our mere existence bothers you that much?
Right.
Let's move on to the next topic, child. But that was our reflection. We were reflecting on the Oscars and then we moved on into a whole nother conversation.
But I do want to say something because you mentioned it. We talked last week about the slap heard around the world, and the challenge in all of this is, again, now the repercussions are this year. We've seen Oscars seemingly reverted back to what it was doing before. It was like, oh yeah, we gave y'all an opportunity, and that's what we see so often, right? So in corporate America, in nonprofit giving, like, well, we tried, or hiring practices, we tried to find a qualified African American. We just can't. So we tried to give you all an opportunity to have a diverse and equitable show, and now I'm sorry, you didn't succeed. So now we got to go back to the format we already know. And it's like, don't get me wrong, it's just funny because at the end of the day, Chris Rock probably isn't present because it was his choice. And Will Smith ain't allowed to go back for 10 years. So who really lost?
Mm-hmm.
Who's the ultimate loser here? And I just feel like for all of
Well,
us,
Malala is an executive producer of the Oscars this year, which I think is a win. And I think that is wonderful. And Lenny Kravitz is going to be doing the in memoriam, and maybe they got a hint from last year that maybe we need to. It's supposed to be an extended tribute, and so maybe they, because of the type of tribute last year, maybe they are going to do something that has a little more resonance. We'll see. But we, as you said, this is where we have to kind of stay observant and wonder, like, are we continuing to advance the baton, or do we drop it and then hand it back?
Right. And do we allow the powers that be to say, hey, we tried, but it didn't work out, so we got to go back to what we feel like we know and what we're comfortable with? Or do we say, no, when we, the collective we, go out to the movie theaters and we support certain films? Like, I saw Creed a few weeks ago, last week, 2 weekends ago, what have you. It wasn't a homogenous group. So the awards shouldn't be homogenous either.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, with that being said, we want to also reflect on the COVID-19 shutdown. So in the year of 2020, 3 years ago, on March 13th, there was, in this country, the declaration was sent out to have that federal shutdown. It started occurring in other countries prior to then, and it doesn't seem like, I mean, COVID is, the emergency part of COVID is away because we have treatments. Now we have more information and knowledge. We have vaccines for prevention, or to reduce your risk of getting it. Although we still have a lot of misinformation, we have a lot of lies, and we have well over 1 million people who died in this country alone. A lot has happened in 3 years as it relates to this disease state. There's still things that we don't know for people who still have long COVID symptoms and experience fatigue and brain fog and all manner of attacks on their vascular system. We see people who still having blood clots post COVID. Like, there's so much that we are still experiencing as it relates to this disease. But it was 3 years ago that this novel disease really shook and rocked all of our worlds. What are you reflecting back on as you think about the shutdown and all what we come through?
Yeah, I am reflecting on, my experience. Like I said, for me, March 11th was actually sort of my last day in the office in the way that I remembered it, or the way it had been. And that was because earlier in that week, someone who had traveled, I believe, to China and stopped in our office on the way back to their home, got back to their home, and was sick. And then, we were notified that that person had been on our floor. And I just remember then we had no idea, right? We didn't know if it was transmitted through touching, through contact with objects. Like, we had no idea. And so that was when we were given a choice. If I recall correctly, the 11th was a Friday and the 13th was that yeah, the 11th was a Friday. 13th, well, the 13th was that Monday, so the 11th might have been a Thursday or something. I'm getting my dates wrong. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, um the 13th, I believe, was that Monday, but we had the option of making a decision not to come in that Friday before because of the fact that we had had that exposure. And I just, we've come a long way in what we did not know to what we know now. And
Mm-hmm.
granted, there's still a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of disinformation. I was just reading something the other day and on social media, someone passed away, and it's like, oh, it's because all the y'all who took that vaccine, or all of y'all who were taking that, because the what is it, Plaxavid or whatever, the
Mm-hmm. Paxlovid. Mm-hmm.
yeah, that. Sorry, I should have put that on mute. It's all these things about why people have gotten sick. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not like it was COVID. It was a
Mm-hmm.
virus. It's a virus we knew nothing about. So now I'm hearing, oh, they're coming after Dr. Fauci because he knew that this was created in a lab and not from a monkey. And I'm just like, I'm not sure who, did people really believe that it was an animal that transmitted? Because if it was an animal, then you have to ask yourself, how did it transmit from an animal to a human? But
Which happens often. I
happens
mean,
often, happens often. But the bottom line is that I was just like, we have come a long way and we've learned a lot. And sadly, a lot of people lost their lives in order for those of us who are still here to be here, because that's the unfortunate piece. We had a president who said it was just going to wash away.
mm-hmm.
We had a president who didn't believe in getting vaccines. We had a president who pushed the narrative that like this thing was started, and and I was thinking about it, like, so if it was created in the lab, what if they had just come out and say, you know what, it's bioterrorism? Yep, that's exactly what it is. How would people have reacted to that?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure that that would have provided the level of, I don't think that would have helped the scenario. That's what I'm trying to say. So
Right.
we have
Right.
learned a lot. We have made a lot of strides, but there's just still so much misinformation and disinformation out there.
Absolutely. And all we have four government agencies who have their theories, and everybody, oh well, they're coming out with their reports. The Department of Defense is saying that they finalized the report saying it may have come out of a lab, but they have low confidence in their own report. Like, stop it, please. Like, please, can you please stop the foolishness and shenanigans? What I do know for sure is that this virus is here to stay. Um, as we were shopping yesterday for eggs, and looking at the cost of eggs, and my husband was like, "That's what happens when you kill over 15 million chickens, right? Because a lot of people don't realize that there was a very bad strain of bird flu, and avian flu is really the reason why our eggs are costing us so much, because they literally wiped out a lot of chickens and a lot of turkeys and a lot of all manner of birds and fowl that we eat, because there was a very bad strain of bird flu at the end of 2022. And so you don't have the same production.
Right.
There are still ramifications in our supply chain because China still has a zero COVID policy, and we still get a inordinate and large amount of our goods made in China. And
Right.
so there are still ramifications from, as we reflect on the shutdown and all that happened, there are still ramifications in the system related to this virus. And this won't be the only virus that we have. As one of my good friends, who's a brilliant doctor, said, there are more viruses and bacteria than there are humans on this earth, for sure.
Well, in this
So,
country, there's also more guns. And so at this point, we have, if it's not the pandemic as we know it from a COVID situation or another virus, there's so many other, at least epidemics that we're facing in this country.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. And we could be reflecting on, because also in the year 2020 was because we were all home at that time, come the summertime, or I think it was the month of May, which is coming up,
mhm,
we all bore witness to the murder of George Floyd.
yeah,
We bore witness to the police raid on Breonna Taylor. We bore witness to people thinking that they can police whoever they want to, and the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. And so, as we reflect and know what just happened in Memphis a few weeks ago, and see what's happening in some other places, the Louisville where Breonna Taylor was, that police department is now under investigation by the Department of Justice for their civil rights violations in the community. So as we reflect on the last 3 years, there's a lot of things as it relates to virus, as it relates to policing, as it relates to social justice, that we really need to continue to be aware, and if we've learned anything, apply the learnings. Because that's the thing I think for me, as we reflect, is that we look back at things and then we just like throw it all out and start over again, and throw it all out and start over, and throw it all out and start over, when we should just be ever evolving and forward progressing, because we should be taking those learnings, making ourselves better and stronger and able to move forward.
yeah. And I was just looking because I remember Kenosha also, the Kyle Rittenhouse thing happened in
Yes.
August of 2020 as well. And to your point, at the end of the day, I think what all of this, which to your point, we should all be learning and growing and advancing and seeking to be better and do better. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people, your governor being one of them, that have their own selfish motivations, and quite frankly, it's in their best interest for us to remain divided. And as the old saying says, united we stand, divided we fall. And so
Mhm.
it's in their best interest to keep us divided so that they can be elevated, which
Mhm.
is tragic. It's tragic because
Mhm.
at the end of the day, the goal here, as we've talked about in Sunday school many times, the goal of all of this it's supposed to be about us being better, so that for those of us who believe in the higher power, we glorify that higher power, not
Hmm.
for self elevation. And that's
Aggrandizement and all of the other suches.
okay.
Well, so speaking of being better
Yes.
and guided higher, you wanted to spend some time reflecting on our weekend.
Hmm.
And so this weekend, actually starting on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we both participated. I participated as an MC, and this is like about my fourth go around with participating in the Trauma Cure with Dr. Lana. She's been a guest on the show before, definitely friend of the Hey Sister family. We'll drop a couple of links, but I'll let you start on your reflections first, sister, since this was your first time around.
Yes. So as I stated at the start of the show, I did not get a chance to fully participate, which I took away so many nuggets and so many notes and so many things, and I didn't fully participate, as in I wasn't at the time participating for the entirety of the time each day, because that thing called work and all that stuff. But even in the times that I was able to log on, it was always something that I was able to take away from it. So basically, and you'll do a better job of kind of summarizing it than I think I would, but Dr. Alana's goal, if you haven't seen her on Hey Sister before, if you don't know the work that she does, she's a trauma psychiatrist. And the goal here is for us to heal ourselves from the various areas of trauma that we have experienced in our lives. And so until you really start talking about what is trauma and different types of trauma, it's,
Mhm.
very often we only categorize trauma as being these big, massive things, right? Or events that we had to experience. And as she noted, you don't necessarily have to experience it firsthand to still be traumatized by it.
Mhm.
And so, things that we talked about, for example, that I would have not thought to put in the trauma bucket was like climate and weather related trauma. So, when I think about our home um, of Louisiana, I think about, in Lake Charles when they had back to back hurricanes. When I think about Baton Rouge having a flood and then having hurricane and then having another flood a few years later. When I think about, of course, we know the Hurricane Katrinas, the Hurricane Idas, Laura, Rita, all of these things, it's like you don't necessarily bucket that in trauma unless the person, if they lost a loved one or lost their home or something like that, then you might bucket it in being traumatic. But even if you did not experience, like you weren't in it, but you had family members who experienced it, or you had to help care for somebody as a result of that, like those things are traumatic experiences. When she talked about financial trauma, and I didn't get to hear the whole financial trauma thing, so I'm looking forward to going back and listening to that. But, hearing from friends and knowing what I know about my own family and my upbringing and what I've seen, but hearing even from friends who talk about going through divorces and how that traumatized them financially because
Mhm.
it almost ruined them, or having stuff, bills put in their name that they didn't know were in their name, or people buying stuff and you didn't know about it, and they've used you as the way to get those things. So it was a lot of lessons, a lot of lessons.
So Jody participated in the last cohort, so she's reflecting on her time participating. I learned that so many things are classified as trauma. Yeah, absolutely. So I will say that one of the singular best decisions I made was participating in this this work and going further into the work with Dr. Alana. Um, just even understanding, having a greater level of understanding, because as she says, trauma hurts, empathy heals. I got one of the stickers right there. I keep them right in front of me, honey, so I can keep my mind right.
Right.
But really, when I initially took the course and went in, it was really for me to sharpen my saw as a coach. So, as an executive coach and as a business owner, as I work with people and help them navigate their crucial conversations, issues in the workplace, develop themselves as leaders, I gained so much that I can apply in that arena in addition to what I gained for myself. And so that's why I'm a staunch believer that it really can transform our working environments. It can transform our schools. It can transform many of the spaces we in if each of us kind of participates in this type of training and development and learn more about, one of the things that Chris Rock said was that, people say words hurt, but people who say words hurt haven't been punched in the face, right? But the truth is, they both hurt,
Right.
and our brain registers them the same.
Mm-hmm.
Now, while the physical damage done by a punch is visible, the invisible damage done by words, especially compounded over years, is equally as damaging. Because the truth is, that's why kids rather take a whipping than you say, I'm disappointed in you.
And I would venture to say it's even worse. I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
even say it's equal. I would say it's worse because depending on what it is and how it happened, it, like you said, can last for so long. And you're now making all these decisions and moving in a way that is based on something that happened
Right.
when you were 6
While
years
while that punch you will heal from on the outside,
right.
some of the things that were said into you and laid down in your wiring in your brain takes a whole lot of time to rewire.
Yeah.
So,
well, and one of the things we talked about, and you and I talked about a little bit afterwards, was again this notion of your chronological age versus your biological age.
no,
But
yes,
chronological age, psychological age, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
And so it definitely, as the people be like, who hurt you? It makes you wonder who hurt you and when.
Mm-hmm.
When did it happen? And so, and again, as Jody said about the all the traumas, it is so much like she says put a tick mark by each, but it's like I'm gonna just do the category because I can't think of the number of times that I might have been traumatized within this category. So I'm gonna just put one check mark, and you just start to recognize that if every one of us is walking around with trauma, and if she listed
and over 7 billion of people on this earth at this point, and we all have some type of trauma. I mean, you got to even think some people are born in trauma, some people have traumatic births, like
these kids that have been born out of this earthquake and their parents are now gone, and they were rescued out of the rubble.
Yes That is going to shape a whole lot of things moving forward. Exactly. And you're right, Lakeisha, as a lot of adults are still hurt from how they were talked to by their parents, not just their parents, their teachers, not just their teachers, their friends. Some people, like we're sisters, we're biological sisters. And when my sister saw me get a whipping, it had an impact on her too.
It did. And dare I say, the trauma that no one is going to want to really talk about, but the religious trauma, because it's a lot of things when we talked about myths that we were told. One thing I'll be forthright and say, growing up, when you were a girl, if boys were considered sowing their wild oats, girls are considered promiscuous. You hear the term fast girls, you don't really hear fast boys as much, and so with those messages coupled with the religious and church messages of you don't have sex before you're married, you get married, and you are expected to have children, procreate. You're supposed to be faithful for the rest of your life. There's very few circumstances around which God frowns upon divorce. Like, you hearing all of these messages, it's like, if I step outside of this, then I am a terrible person. And it's like, no, you're
just human. You
human.
are just human. We're only human. Yes,
Flesh and blood,
indeed.
we're made.
Flesh and blood, we are made. Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes.
So,
Well, there's other things we could have talked about this evening, but I know sister had to go. Let's see what we got. Back in the day, if you had a
yeah,
baby out of wedlock, you had to come for. Yes, yeah, the guy had to do nothing,
right. And that
nothing
is back
at
in
all.
the day, Jody. I have a friend who told me that, and she's younger than me, by about almost 10 years, said that happened at her sister's church, and she never went back because she was like, absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep,
so
we still
that's
doing some of that foolishness.
still
Yes,
doing some of
indeed.
that.
Well, there are other things that have happened in the world that we did not get to go in tonight. We wanted to do a little bit of reflection time as we are getting ready. Sister has an obligation this evening, but we didn't talk about Silicon Valley
Let's
Bank.
talk about it. We got a few minutes. Listen,
We got a few. Okay.
I ain't have no money in this bank. So, however, I am sitting up here like there's a branch here. And I'm like, watching the people on the news, this lady, like, I don't know how we're going to make payroll today. How you had them people show up to their job and y'all, the doors just locked? How you had people trying to come and take their money out and talking about it's going to be available on Monday? I needed it on Friday. I don't need it on Monday. By Monday,
Because there was a run on the bank, just like in the movie. What's the movie with Jimmy Stewart, the one we watch at Christmas every year? A Wonderful Life. There was a run on the bank because Uncle didn't get that deposit in, baby, and there was a run on the deposits, honey. In Silicon Valley Bank, there are a lot of tech companies. It is really in that tech space. It had a lot of startups and what have you. I don't know all the details and about what caused and or triggered this failure, but if we don't think that it is going to have ramifications in the system, we need to be thinking about that. Talk about reflecting on what money is and currency and how you use it. And if cash is king, do you have some cash at your house just in case something pops off?
and reflecting on the
Comma.
fact that in 2000, what was it, 2008 or so, when there was a bank bailout. Now, again, we ain't quite settled on how y'all gonna pay off my student loans just yet. Now, I know we
Hmm.
started the conversation, but somewhere along the line of the conversation and got convoluted and moved over to the side. You haven't figured out how to bail people out who are in deep student loan debt. Now you have the 16th largest bank failing. This is the second biggest bank failure in history.
Because
So,
Washington Mutual was the first, back in 2008, as you said. Hmm.
right. And so, and yeah, I mean, this bank 16th is not, like, it's relatively small, but I want to say they still had about $250 billion in assets, if I remember correctly, but I could be wrong on
Hmm.
that. and I should probably look it up before I quote anything. Um, but yeah, it's just we have to figure out, like you said, reflecting. We have to think through. Don't just let stuff collapse and don't just let stuff fall apart. Is like it's the FDIC insured bank is the biggest failure since 2008. What are we going to do different then? Are we just going to see this big bank failure and say, oh, okay, we've seen
Another one. As the words of DJ Khaled, another one.
right? Is that what we're doing? No, we need to learn something from this and be better and do better. Because, so I was just looking.
Yes, you need more than $2 in your purses. And they got all this stuff here about coins and checking your old coins and what your coins might be actual value before you just go bring them to a coin store machine. Y'all better be looking at y'all coins for all of these
So I'm gonna just
coins
read
that
this
have value.
quick quote. It says, having to raise money on short notice is never a good look for a bank. As regional bank reporter Max Reyes explained in a Bloomberg Live blog earlier today, north of 93% of the bank's 161 billion, so my bad, north of 93% of the bank's 161 billion in deposits are uninsured. The psychology to withdraw deposits if you feel something is going wrong is that much more compelling. So, yeah, so 93% is uninsured, which means that's what, greater than 250,000 at this point.
Mm-hmm.
There are companies that have all of their money in that bank.
Yes.
So,
yes,
yeah.
absolutely. And so it's a mess, honey. So that's something we didn't reflect on tonight. We did not reflect on the cartel handing over 5 people and saying, oh, because the cartel was like, what y'all not going to do is mess up our money and all these Americans coming over here getting their drugs. What y'all not going to do is mess up our coinage and have the U.S. State Department shut down spring break travelers to the whole country of Mexico. Oh, what we not doing is that. So here y'all 5 people with the note saying we sorry we killed some Americans.
And is it true that they thought they were Haitian? Is that why they thought
They said they thought there were some Haitian drug dealers with their I don't know, there was a rental car, so I don't know what tag it had on it.
I thought it was
South
Carolina.
In South Carolina. They drove down from South Carolina. Yeah.
Baby, listen. Now I'm gonna need y'all to know, okay, Mexican cartel. I'm gonna need y'all to know that just because you saw brown skin, that didn't make them Haitian drug dealers. Like, that's kind of offensive under the circumstances, guys.
On so many levels.
Right. It's on so many levels. So yeah.
On so many levels. So there are so many things we didn't get to reflect on, but sister has to go. She has another obligation. So thank you for tuning in tonight live with Hey Sister. We appreciate your family for joining us. And you know where you can find us on Sundays. Make sure you tell your friends and family to follow, subscribe, like, and catch the replays on the podcasting platform of your choice. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.